So what I'm going to teach you today, or try to teach anyway, and I've had many requests for this, so I hope you're happy about this, is we're going to have sort of a rainy day, or maybe just slightly after the rain, maybe just after it started, who knows. And this will be an old street scene with mud puddles, and we'll have a few buildings and some light poles and some odds and ends. Now, we're not going to have time to make this a full-fledged street scene. You just don't have time to get all the basic components in an hour and a half. But what we can do is get you the basic idea on how to do it. Now, here's where we begin to get into the area that a lot of you are requesting. Now, I'm going to reflect this color down into the street now that we've got the street located. You just sort of dry brush it in like this. Wherever you see that color, you sort of dry brush it. Now this time you go sort of vertically, horizontally into the street like this. Now you always start with the sky first. And we've already done that. We've got this grayish tone. Now we're going to get the sun color in there. And you want it to put the paint on fairly thick. Now see, I'm going to come right on down the center of the road, just like this. It's not much different than painting, reflection in a lake or a pond or on the ocean or whatever. And we'll intensify this later on, but you got to start right here like this. See, that glow will come just like that. Now this is the part that I'm wanting to teach you. Even if we don't get to painting the buildings per se, that's not the issue. We've done enough of that on some of our other instructional videos. This is how you do the water or the puddles or wet street, whatever you want to call this. I got that a little too white, so I'm going to add just a little more yellow and orange to it. There we go, a little back in there. And we may hit that 2 or 3 times until we're satisfied with it, but right now, this is just the beginning. There's usually a very narrow sort of a strip like this right down the middle. Okay. See, I'm not making any hard edges, but I'm wiggling my brush. Okay. Now, wherever there are objects that will be in here, we need to put those in there. For instance, right now, let's go ahead and put the edge of the curb on there. Now these are all important little steps. So now you take a little sienna, along there, and put just a little grayish tone. This will give you just a little bit of a shadow for the edge of the curb there. Okay, that helps a lot. Already establish something there that we can step off of. All right. Now back here on the back of the road, you'll notice these buildings. Well, all of those have a little bit of a grayish, purplish tone to them. So you just go in and you mix those colors up, and you wiggle that into the road like this. Now you have to, this is where it takes time. That's why it's difficult sometimes, folks, to finish certain paintings here, because some of these things just take a lot of time. So you may have to work at this a little harder than this. But take this purplish color, just kind of blend that into the water or into the road. See, like that, by wiggling your brush. See, that just kind of wiggles that down there. And then the front of it there will have a similar color. That's a little bit of an orangish, bluish color. And then when you've done some of that, stand back in a minute and just take a look at it and watch sort of how it all falls into place. And here, and before you know it, it all begins to look just like water. Everything that's above needs to be reflected into now. See how I'm doing that? Sometimes you go back and re-highlight or add to, and that's how you begin to start making this look wet. All right? So just play with your building, start beginning the process of sort of slopping in your colors, sort of defining things. And we're going to let this dry here for a second. Then when that's dry, we're going to come back and really intensify the glow and start getting all the reflections in. Okay, now this is really important where we're headed from this point on. Okay, we've got it all underpainted. We've got some of the basic components of the, the reflection started. Now, I guess more than anything, I can't do a whole lot of explanation. This is the kind of painting, and I know that's going to freak some of you out because you're used to me talking all the time. So I'm going to spend a whole lot of time working the brush, and I want you to just watch it. Okay, watch carefully what I'm doing. Now, I'm going to explain things, of course, obviously about values and things as we go, so you won't get in trouble. But I want you to watch what happens as the painting develops, and everything that I put in where I'm going to reflect it, and that's the key to making wet pavement or wet, any kind of wet ground where you want to have a mud puddle or something like that. It doesn't matter what kind of surface it is. So I want you to pay real close attention. Now I may switch from time to time. I'm going to have 2 or 3 brushes. I'll have my number 6 bristle, my little number 4 flat sable, and my little number 4 round sable. Okay, I will have both of those, and or all 3 of these, and so I'll be switching around. So I'm going to start first back here in the background now, and I'm going to start refining things slightly. With this building here, I've decided I'm going to change the shape of it just a little. So I'm going to take a little sienna and white. Now always add white to refine it. In other words, or to change the value, I should say. All right, so back here now, I'm going to dry brush in this little building real quick. And I've decided I want this to be a white church. Like a real pretty white church, and we got a perfect spot for that because with this sort of purplish building, now see I can reflect this into the water, and every time you reflect, always dry brush like this, sort of in a wiggly movement. Okay, that will help you get this set. Now this church, I'm just going to take pure white, and with a little bit of water and the mud that's in my brush, it's not going to look pure white, and believe me, you don't want it to be pure white. But now you just kind of lay in the church there. And then you want to reflect that into the water after you get it painted. And folks, there's just a whole lot of things going on here, and you have to work kind of back and forth. And now I'm going to do the steeple up here. Now, you might want to make the steeple a little whiter, just because it will show up better up here against this background. And all those little things help identify other objects, where they contrast against each other, okay? The steeple now you can go ahead and put in up here. And I see that just there. It's not real painted carefully, but it's there. You can block in a door or a window now. That's where you can go with this next. See, just very lightly because it's in the distance still. Notice how quick I'm doing things. A little shadow there, a little there for the bell tower, or whatever you want to call it. Just a little shadow right under there in the overhang. See, that kind of helps identify it as a church now. It's really much. Then I can switch now to my little round sable. I'm going to move this around a little bit. I'm going to drive you all and our camera people crazy, but that's kind of my job, so just hang tight. Put a little shadow on this side of the steeple so that you can see it. Okay, see, that makes it stand out. All we want to do is here and there just put a stroke of something here and there to help identify it as whatever it might be, okay? That's really all that's necessary. And then wherever you go with a color, you reflect it into the water if you can see it. Okay, like for instance here, I'm going to put this door in here, and it's a little darker, so I'll reflect it into the water. Okay, see, like that. Now there has to be a separation, so you may take little smidges of white like this, little smidges just across the edge there to suggest and work it out into the water slightly. And see, little by little, it's starting to look a little wetter and wetter and wetter. I guess the secret is looseness and freedom. Don't get real carried away with lots of detail. Now this sidewalk here goes back and turns the corner, and you can put a light pole right there, which I'm going to do. So I'm going to take a color that's brown with a little sienna, and let's see, probably ought to be smart. practice what I preach. Sketch this in right there. Make sure that it's standing fairly straight. And you know, there's a lot of light poles along this. There'll probably be one or two back here, and you know, I'm going to put a couple of like telephone poles with wires going to the house here. That'll add a nice little interesting touch to things. And then I'll probably have another light pole here. I think I'm going to put one right here. And maybe one right there. It goes around the corner, maybe one on the corner right there. You know, this really will add a nice little touch to this. So what you'll do is you take your brush now and you mix up a grayish brown, something that'll stand out but not overpower. Start on this side first. And you just dry brush down kind of quickly. You want to make it a little wider at the base. Now, there are all kinds of ways to make these poles. You know, some of them were real decorative, and I don't care. I mean, you could put a little wider base at the bottom here, and some of them had little Victorian type designs at the top to kind of hold the lamp globe and so forth. But you just block these things in, and for instance, they have a little, this is the globe up here or whatever you call it. So you just sort of, you can kind of create your own design even, but something kind of like that. And some of them had these little designs out there, little, it kind of held them on or whatever. You don't even have to get real careful with it, just enough to suggest it, because that's the whole idea behind making this look wet. If you're not careful, you're going to get in good shape. Put one back here. I'm going to do them quickly. See, just a suggestion. Same thing here. I'm always going to kind of lean back a little bit and make sure everything's standing up straight, parallel with the sides of the canvas. That's critical. See, I'm just making some little suggestions of something like it's at the top, holding it together. Kind of fun. Let's go over to this side. Do one. This is one of my favorite things to do, is just quick loop. I'm going to make that one a little shorter. Actually, it should be about the same height as this one because they're in about the same location. So. Every stroke is loose and free, so it's kind of blurry on the edges. That gives it that sort of rainy day look. So you just have a light pole there. So you can even have a shadow coming here on the sidewalk, because you probably will have, but then you're going to have reflections too. But now we've got to go to work on this part. This is the part that gets us in trouble. Now the way this works is you take your number 6 sable flat brush, and we just start blobbing in colors, colors that are around us, okay? And you'll just start with the white, all right? And you just go like this, and you start using sort of like patchwork design shape, just back and forth like this. Leaving some of this background coming through. Now this is critically important, folks, to get this down right. As you go, you add some of the colors that you see in the painting. And there are some that you won't see, that are maybe out of sight. Like I want the edge of this, the curve to come right there. I want this to be a little more lit right there. Okay, but I'm going to put little choppy strokes like this out here back and forth. It's kind of like cross hatching, see that? That's how you begin to get the wetter look. Then you can add colors, like now I may go into some pure, more blue. See, I may be picking up some of the color of the pavement or some of the, whatever it is out there. Okay. Give you another example. Like over here, I would probably have a door. Now that's a blue door, as you can see. Get kind of dark there. Probably have a window or two here. Going to have our overhang line there with a little shadow. So you will reflect some of these colors down into the water, into the street. You will reflect the color of the building, which has kind of got this reddish tone to it. So you get some of that down in here. You say, well, okay, now how do I know where to reflect the colors? Well, remember, if you've got the tape, and I don't know, some of you have it, some of you may not, but there's a tape that talks about reflections and shadows and all the other things in painting. And you always reflect directly below whatever it is you're putting in there. Like even these little light poles, we're going to reflect those in here in a minute. Anything else in there that can pull up out of reflection, we put it in there. You then come back and begin refining. You see, like, what I mean by that is we will sort of clean up our strokes a little bit. I may come in here and just make that a little smoother, a little cleaner. I may want to put more browns and some of these earthier tones in the pavement, but notice it's loose and free. As we come forward, it's going to get darker and darker and more into a real grayish tone. But everything's done loose and free, but with soft edges, okay? The only time you're going to have a hard edge, and even then it's going to be questionable how hard it is when you have a fairly straight object like these posts and things. Now, see, I'm even going to darken this doorway a little bit because it's got to be a little bit darker. Darken the window. So I just want to kind of duplicate whatever I see above, that's what I put below. And that's how it all works out. It's like here now, I'm going to put a little shadow right along the edge here. And what you're really doing is creating a shadow, but you're also creating a reflection at the same time. A little bit of reflectiveness coming down. And it's best to use these large strokes. Now when you get in the foreground down here, you want this to be, you know, a fairly deep, rich color. Sienna, blue. Yeah, you can have a little purple in there too. And don't be too concerned about how neat your strokes are, because you want to keep them loose. As long as they have meaning and purpose, then you're going to be okay. See, I'm kind of being very loose and free and open, and there'll be some places where I'm going to have more color. Like right in through here, I may pick up a little color of the sky. Because we don't know 100%, we just don't know 100% where everything is going to be, because we're not there. We're sort of making this up. Now, if you had a good piece of reference material to go by, perhaps this would be a little different. But notice how I'm going in now. I'm beginning to soften my edges, picking up a little bit of the color that's in the sky. And then we go into some more of the greenish tones. So that's why we put the green in there. It looks real good in the water if you have a little bit of a greenish color to it. So now I take the white, I take a little bit of the green and the blue and the sienna. I like a little bit of green in there. Yeah, really does help. But notice how I'm keeping everything soft but loose. See, that's what gives it that kind of sparkly look. All right, now see we got a little greenish gray over here from these bushes. Probably want to reflect those in over here. So we get a little bit of that green in there. And that begins to help really make this come alive. It really gets exciting. Now this corner over here should be probably a little darker. So I take the sienna and the blue. Now don't panic when you see this. You can add other colors like orange and white to that. You can add a little, just anything to kind of gray that, soften it. Then you can turn it into brick, stone, or any other medium. Now that's another thing, folks. That's why I'm telling you today our main focus is on the idea and the concept of creating a wetter look. You know, like just before, just after, or even during a rainstorm. And yeah, I don't have time to give you all the details about how to do the stone or the brick. Now we do have videos and tapes already on that stuff, so they're designed to teach you that. This is designed to teach you this. So please know that and use the other tapes. So if you want to make this a brick or stone building, go to the brick tape or the stone tape or wherever you get that information, and then you can make brick out of this or stone. Like I could do that right now. I may just start a little bit to show you what I'm talking about, and then you can go back and finish it. So I'll take my color, and now I will, maybe these are large cut stones. Maybe they're brick, I don't know, but I will go in there and I will begin the process of maybe trying to create that effect. Just enough to fool the eye, make me think there's something going on there. You may put a flower box here with some flowers coming out. You could put a railing around here, a window in there. We're probably going to put a couple of lights in some of the windows and things. So you can just begin little minor details. But you can see already it's beginning to look very wet, and it's really exciting when you understand the concept of what makes something wet versus what, you know, is a drier effect. Okay, now over here, let's work on this building just a little bit. It could be made out of cedar or log. I mean, I'm just showing you that there's different possibilities here. I'm going to lighten it slightly. I'm going to go up and down like this. To give it that little bit of a lighter look. And softer look. Okay, and see that helps a lot. And then we kind of do a little bit of that down here in the water. You don't get real specific, but you just get enough, see, to duplicate that vertical stroke. That's the key here, folks, is learning how to duplicate strokes to fool the eye. See, just doing that little bit instantly helps it look like water. Now we put a window over there. Let's put a window here, for instance. And say our door's right back here. Put a big double door here, maybe. Yeah, that'd be good. So you can reflect that window also right on the sidewalk here, because it's kind of wet too. So you know where everything's going to be kind of wet. See, that's the same thing here. You're going to probably reflect a little bit of that down in there, and kind of keep your edges kind of rough and broken. And of course, if this is a sidewalk, this could be cobblestone or it could just be big slabs. So you can put little lines out going across to sort of suggest that you could put little cross pieces in. You know, to kind of help give you that look of a more of a metropolitan type of a setting. And yeah, you can refine things a little bit if you choose to, but you just don't want to go so far that you get yourself in trouble. Because that's what happens to most of us. We try to do too much. Now see, like here's a good thing. Put those two windows in right there. Now watch you put those in the reflection right there. See how much, boy, that really makes help that look wet. It really is neat. So whatever you put above the water, you see, you put in the water. And that's how you get the look. And then I'll come back and begin the little details and things that kind of give it its character, all right? All right, for instance, now we're going to take this to the next degree. This is where it gets pretty exciting. Okay, got lots of color in here now. We've got kind of everything in place where we want a lot of it to go. Yes, we'll probably have some trees and bushes or two coming up behind here that we can reflect into the water, but that'll be sort of a final step, if you will. You may want to have a park bench or something sitting here, or maybe a person standing or walking down the road, and I could put a person, like I'll sketch this person here. Maybe he's an old man there and he's got a cane and he's just walking along there and he's got a hat on. You know, there's just a lot of possibilities here, folks. Might be a good idea to do something like that. Just a man walking down the street there, and maybe he's got his dog or whatever. Like I said, maybe you could have a park bench sitting here. Maybe this is the barber shop, and you could have a barber pole out here. That'd add some color to it, and you know, things like that. I'm just giving you pointers and suggestions that would help you. Okay, now we start refining. In that sense, I mean, we start cleaning it up. We give it the sparkle and the look, you know. Okay, I'm going to start in the background now with my little round sable brush. And I want to go ahead and do a few little things. Like I want to put a few more little poles just sticking up like that. And I'm going to have some wires like, you know, telephone poles. For instance, I want to make a telephone pole right there. See, there's a pole right there. I'm just going to suggest some wires hanging off of it. Mostly for composition's sake. See, we just put these lines in there. Really adds a nice touch. You know, like you're in the city somewhere. Maybe there's part of an old fence back there, you know, an old picket fence or something. It's kind of silhouetted in, so we come back here like this. See, that adds a touch to it as well. And then you reflect that into the water back there. Little by little. So you just put little reflections of those posts in there. Even though it's minor, folks, that really helps to make the water look wet. You reflect the telephone poles. Anything that you can get reflected, you'd get it. See, I'm reflecting this pole into the sidewalk there. See, just like that. This one I'll reflect a little too. And then we will reflect them right on down into the water like this. And then, you know, you have the little top there. And that's how you begin to really make this look wet. And I'll tell you, the more you do to this with these little suggestive things, the better it looks. For instance, the church back there, you could make it now just a little bit whiter. Down my dry brush, a little bit more white on it. And then reflect it into the water a little bit whiter, because I know that that will give it the look that I want. You see, that just creates the effect there. Soften and smudge, and see, I'm being very loose. You can put a little broken part of a fence there. See how cool that is? There's so much you can do with this. It just blows me away how simple this is, and yet how difficult we make it, because we try to make it too photographic, and then you get in trouble. And you know, I'm just as guilty as the next person about that kind of stuff. You know, I'm not saying I got it all down. Now what you do with these poles now, You get your brush and just load it with a very similar color, and you just see how I'm wiggling back and forth? Right down into the water, just to create the suggestion, and then at the top there you've got your little thing. Do this one. Now again, folks, remember, I'm on very strict time restraints here. We can only do so much in so much time, so I'm working real hard to just get the point across to you, and then you've got to take it from there, okay? This one would come right down like this. Now it's a little closer to us. You might be a little bit more careful with it. It'll kind of almost just disappear into this dark value, because see, that's a dark value, and it will disappear into this dark value, okay? So that's kind of how that works. Now, if you're going to have little chimneys, and I mean, you just start going back through and you do things, maybe you need a chimney back there. You know, I mean, and remember though, anything you do, keep it in the right value. See, that's way too dark for that, so I got to soften it a little. There may be a shadow from it too. Okay, now I've got the edge of my sidewalk there that probably needs to be accented just a little sharper. So I decide where the edge is going to be, and I come in and I kind of clean that up. See, that's an important step right there. And it's called dry brushing. You want to dry brush, leaving little smudges. See, the canvas kind of comes through. See, I'm just kind of, all right, same thing here. You want to do the same thing, very exact same thing back here. I'm going to find the corner, and then on the edge there, I'm just going to simply sort of just put a little light highlight. Now see how that begins to three-dimensionalize and make it look a little sparkly? Same thing right back here. Isn't that cool? Little by little. Now, you know, all of these things are going to work to your advantage if you don't get trouble here. And what I mean by that is don't overwork it. Now, I am going to do something I wasn't going to do too much of, but I am going to just a little script brush work. We don't need to do much. It's not hard, but you do need a few little twiggy trees here. You know, kind of back in here to help fill up some space and kind of create a little bit of a, you know, different compositional thing. So let's do a few of those, and then we'll analyze where we have to go and begin the final phase. But already you can see how wonderfully wet this is beginning to look. And again, depending on where you live, what part of the world you live in, you know, I live in a little tiny rural town that really doesn't have a lot of character, but I can make it have character because I'm an artist. You may live in a town that's just full of character or full of characters. We all have that too. But see here, I want to put just a few little twiggy trees back behind this particular building. The reason for this, I want you to watch this. This is kind of neat. And if I like this well enough, we may do it some more here. This does a couple of things. It helps bring things forward, set the background back, but it's also a good reflective thing. Okay, so you just quickly, see I'm laying those in there? Then you come down here where the end of this building would be, probably right in through here, and you begin, see, putting those in, because you see a few coming out behind right there. So you put a few in here, and you try to, you're not going to see too many, but you're going to see just enough to give it away that those are reflected in there, okay? And see, every little bit helps, all right? So what I want you to do now is spend a few minutes kind of catching this up here. Let's kind of just kind of start analyzing where we have to go, and then I'll show you up with the final sparkle on here, and then you've got a wet and rainy day. Okay, now the final stages here are simply refining and giving it a sparkle. Like I said, you could take this to the nth degree, spend 2 or 3 more hours doing more detail work, and I would expect you'll do that. But from an instructional point of view, we're getting close now to doing all I can show you. So Now what I'm going to do though is highlight and strengthen some of the things that need to be strengthened. For instance, I'm going to go back to the church now using the white, and like for instance, I want the steeple to be a little cleaner and brighter. All right, now these are important steps because you'll see what I mean. It kind of cleans up the painting. So now I'm taking my little round sable, just a little cleaner, a little brighter, make it a little more identifiable as a church steeple. Maybe brighten up the front of the church just a tad. Put a little highlight on the edge. Just see how nice that makes that stand out. I think that adds a nice flavor to it. It also is a good place to make the edge of the building here stand out by making this a little whiter. Okay. So see, that's a perfect thing there for that. Then you reflect a little bit of that right here in the water. Now you probably won't get too much, or you might get some right in here, to tell you the truth. So you go ahead and do that. This could be from part of the steeple there. See, I have a feeling you probably would get some of that. So by doing that, that just adds a little more color to the water. Now you might want to put a little yellowish highlight on this roof back here. So I'll take white and yellow. Just the purpose for this mostly is to add color to the painting, to give it a little more character. So the yellow is nice. You don't have to make it solid. See, everything in this kind of painting is loose and free, see? And then you reflect it into the water. You've got, put it in the wrong spot there. It's not down that far. But see, that all you do is just suggest that it's there. I mean, you don't have to go in there and find the exact place, but by putting a little bit of that in there, you know that it's reflecting from the roof there. And that's all that's necessary for this, folks. Just be very quick and loose and free. Now, one of the things I want to do, if you want to put some, like this little man, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, but because that's not really the issue, but you could put a person walking down here, and I'll just kind of quickly lay him in here. I'll just silhouette him. You know, he's just kind of walking, and he's kind of maybe a little bit humped over there, I don't know. He's got an old hat on. And he's got a walking stick there. And then his other shoulder comes on the back side there. Now, these kind of things require really concentration because, you know, if you're not careful, you can get yourself in trouble. But see, you reflect these into the water too. You just simply reflect his leg and his basic body form right there, and the little bit of reflection of the cane. And that also adds a nice little touch. Now, I've seen a lot of these, as many of you have, where you have a lot of the street scene with the ladies with the parasols and the big white dresses and all that kind of stuff. Well, that's good, and you can do that. Again, that would just take hours. We don't have hours. I don't have time to show you all that. All I can do is show you the basics. And so here again, you just go in and do this. Now I'm going to go up underneath his, I want to open that up a little bit there, make sure he's proportioned right. I'm just kind of playing with some of the things that I want to do to make him look a little bit better. And you can do the same thing, just kind of play with it a little bit. And you will want to do some things, you know, just to make him stand out just a tad bit more. Put little highlights on the edge in the water. Just little smudges, let's see, like this, really do a great, just see how great that looks. Same thing on these light poles. In fact, we need to do that before I forget. I would just take pure white and put a little sliver of it right down the edge like this. Okay, see how nice that looks? Then you come right down in here into the water. You do the same thing, put a little sliver, kind of little dots mostly. Well, look at that. Isn't that terrific? Do the same thing on this side, this one. And it looks wetter and wetter every time you turn around. See how cool that looks? Every time you start putting a little touch of something, like a little glow, that's where it starts looking better. Now, back here in the back, that's important. Now we get to the serious business of making this really have that snap. I'm going to take yellow and white right back in through here and dab it in. This is the glow from the setting of the sun. Blend it in a little bit, but see, it's loose and free, so it kind of almost looks like it's on fire back there. Reflect some of that into the water here. Then we start dry brushing a little bits of that color out in here. See, I'm kind of scumbling. This is what's going to make this look wet here in a minute, but you really want that nice glow back there. This also could be a street that has, well, it could be cobblestone, or it could be pavement, it could be, you know, just dirt even for that matter, I don't know. But anyway, what we need to do here is maybe put just a few details in it, and you can use your toothbrush. You know, we've used a toothbrush a few times. You don't have to, but what I'm going to recommend, first take your charcoal and maybe just draw in a few broken lines like this that follow the perspective of the road. You know, and sometimes this will add a real nice touch to, you know, your eye flow and your eye movement. And then you put a few broken lines going this way that are very parallel with the side of the canvas. I'm doing this with charcoal right now, and you may come back in a minute, see, with your brush and add little touches of, but see, that kind of helps make that look a little bit more like some kind of solid surface. Now, before I forget, let's do a little work on this brush over here, just because it needs it. Take the green and the purple, maybe just a little bit of gray. I want to darken this right there. Pull this up. And I want to be that green. That's a little too green. A little sienna and blue of that, a little white. There we go. Now then, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow and white and orange there. This will be sort of the highlight on the top of it. Kind of blend it in. Now you can put a little phthalo yellow green in here if you want, because it will pick up a little bit of light on that edge. That's just a bush there, but we want it to be a little bit darker than what we had. And then again, put some of that into the, see, if you go ahead and reflect some of that into the water here, where that real dark area is especially, and through there, that'll really help this foreground out a lot. Yeah, I do a little bit of that on the sidewalk too. Okay, so that's very important that you kind of get everything going for you. Now this is where you come back down with your little round sable brush and you take yellow and white, you know, just a real clean, bright color, and you start putting these little accent highlights. And we've talked about this before. It's similar to a silver lining on a cloud, what we just did there. But for instance, like on the top edge of your buildings, you don't make a straight line, you just make little dabs. Kind of coming down like this, down like this, and along the edge like that. And see, what that does is it brings it out. It gives it that sparkle. And we know that water has hit the edge and it's probably got a little sparkle to it. Right down the edges of everything that you can get a little of this sparkle on, you need to do it. Okay, and that's what edges this out and makes it look wetter and wetter and wetter. Like even around the edge of his hat, his face, shoulder up here. if you do this right, this can really look good here. Yeah, it looks good with him just kind of walking down there. Now, we've got a few more of those to do, and then again, you'll have to go back and kind of refine yours a little bit. But this is a very thin sliver. Right down the edge. See, little by little, it gets wetter and wetter and wetter until finally, when you get just about everything in there that you feel confident that you need in there, then you start doing your personal, you might say your own personal touch to things. You know, I want to get this edge cleaned up here just a little bit more, so I'm going to, you know, that's one thing that I want to do. You know, I'll probably go in and kind of start cleaning up. I got some doors and windows I want to add. This may be an awning here. This may be a striped awning. It could be colorful, or it could be a lot of things. So I'm going to take some orange and maybe a touch of blue, a little white maybe. And I'm going to make sort of an awning come out here like this, over that. Why not? Give it a little color, have a little fun. Maybe it's a blue and orange striped awning, or you know, something like that. That would be a nice compliment. So see, I might put some blue stripes sort of in there. Touch it up just a little bit. You know, maybe the doors got a little bit of a color to it. Soften it a little. See how we just slowly but surely we just start pulling it together until you get what details you want. Like for instance, now that we have the awning, we may have caused some other technical things where there may be a shadow that needs to be cast there. Well, instead of adding a shadow, most likely you would continue on with your brick or your rock work, and you would go up to wherever the shadow would be, and you would stop the process of the bricks or the stone. And it would just kind of suggest the fact that it's in shadow. But again, this is just sort of my ad-libbing, just thinking quickly. I'm not sure where you want to go with this or how you want to handle it, but these could be those little round river rocks, see? I like this, okay? And then just kind of, yeah, it adds a nice little touch to it there. Get some windows up here. And so you can block those in. Okay, and you just play the game now. You go through and you spend the time doing the technical things that make this thing really come alive. For instance, just the little tiny lines like in the sidewalks. See, we'd sketch those in, you know, with the charcoal, but now you go in and you add those physically with your brush, and you know, you come in here and you put little broken lines like that. Maybe that's what identify the edge of the sidewalk, so you come down. But here again, you don't make a perfect straight line. You just kind of be a little careful about that. One of the biggest battles I fight with all of us is we try to make things just too perfect. So you just kind of, these could be slabs of concrete or some kind of exposed aggregate, you know, that they use in buildings. So you can have a lot of fun with that, but that kind of identifies it. And sometimes I'll go in and smudge, and I'll see here's another spot where I probably want to have a little line or two come across. It kind of helps to break up the monotony of everything doing with the same thing. That really looks cool. All right, now you've got some options here at this stage of the game. Now, one of the things I like to do is put a little glow around the lanterns. But to do that, you know, frankly, I think we probably ought to darken the top of the sky a little bit here, and that will kind of help add to the, like a late evening view of things. So let's go down here and pick up our number 10 bristle brush. This is not a hard thing to do, folks, but you just take a little white, a little blue, a little sienna, again, a little green maybe, a touch of purple, just all those darker values. And you just, this is going to scare some of you, I know. But that's okay. Just put it on there and blend it in. And now this is something that we all have to be able to do at some point in time in our careers. You have to be able to go back in and not be afraid to blend. So I'm going to put the green in there because the green is an important part of this particular painting. All right, and I work it down. I'm going to show you now what we're going to do. As you come down, I'm going to add touches of blue to it. So it gets a little closer to the color. But these gray tones are critical. And then as we come down into this part of the painting, we start adding the lighter values. And then we almost start creating clouds, sort of a cloudy type of a situation. And we're not going to make the clouds be predominant by any means, but we're just going to pull this down. We just start adding white, maybe a little touch of red to it to give it more of a, you don't want it to be too white. But see, I'll come in here now like this, just as a practical matter to kind of open it up a little bit. Give it just a little more character. But I wanted a little darker format up in that left-hand corner, and that's really was the main thing, and I think that solved our problem there. And then you just kind of scatter out across here some little almost cloud-like formations. They're not defined clouds, but you could define them a little bit, like I'm going to do here. So just kind of smudge them in. So you're not going to get out there and be real consumed with them. But most likely you would have some clouds at the end of a rain. See, I'm kind of blending in though to make sure that they're not real outstanding. That particular area right there could use a little bit more. Yeah, that's good. Pretty exciting. Hope you're having as much fun with this as I am. There's so much to learn and so little time to learn at all. Most of us as artists will take it right to our grave. Painting is a lifetime of learning. In fact, you could have several lifetimes and never learn at all. Okay, now, as usual, we're starting to get close to the end of our time, and we really have not gone and taken this as far as I want to take it. But there are some key components to this now left that are important issues for you if you want to take this a step further. Number one, after you get your water in there and you begin to see that you're pleased with it, okay, then you have to do the refinement steps of making it look a little wetter. And this is the scary part. It's the dry brushing or the glazing, okay? And what you do is you take the water, the white, and this number 10 brush, and you work it in here like this. So it's evenly distributed. Make sure it's across the, straight across the end. And you dry brush downward like this. Now, folks, I'm going to just take a couple minutes here, so be patient. You don't make it solid, you just dry brush downward. This is just a very important thing to do. Making sure you leave no hard edges. Boy, look what that does for making it look wet. Isn't that incredible? Softens your hard edges. Boy, just don't make it solid, but see how neat that looks? Now we'll put a few going across this way. And again, this is the main thing here. Now, by the way, I might mention that, like on the sidewalk and stuff, folks, these sidewalks are wet too. So, you don't want to forget that. You want to go back in and make sure that if you're reflecting stuff, you're reflecting and dry brushing and adding these same features to the sidewalk. I don't want to get out here without reminding you of that. But see, that's what makes it all look wet, is when you just put it all in there. Now you want to put a few going across. And this is where you can really be careful. See, this is after you've gotten all of your main colors in there, the main components. See, that just adds a little bit of more of a glow. Now, you don't go too far with that. Keep that in mind. Now let's go up here and put the little glow outside well, whatever they are, the street lamps. This just adds a little bit more of a mystery to the painting and a little bit more interest. Now all you do is take, it's similar to what we did back here. You take yellow and white, just pure yellow and white. Good, clean color. Don't get it too wet. I got it a little wet. If it's too wet, it's not going to work, folks. Find a dry spot there. Mixing it real good in my brush. Now I'm going to just put it in there, you know, and just put a little dab in the center, and then I'm just going to dry brush a little glow around it like this. Take your finger, and you can even dry brush outward, but it's mostly a little bit of a haze around is what it is. It's not a real big sunlit glow like from a lighthouse, you know, where light would go way out there. This is very, very, you might say, just gentle and subtle, but you want to do whatever you do up, remember you got to do it below. We forgot to reflect that pole. That would be a real handy one to have in here. But even those little reflections like that will add a nice touch to this. See, that just gives it just a little bit wetter look. And you just dry brush the glow around each one of those now. I would probably spend a little more time, folks. I have to be honest with you, as I told you before, time is our enemy here, and we're running out of it pretty quick. But I'm going to go ahead and refine this just a smidgen, and then you do the rest. So just be sure you don't leave any hard lines. I guess if I could say anything at all, you know, you've heard me say that a million times, and I know you're sick of it by now, but just don't leave any hard lines when you're doing this kind of thing. See, that just gives it a little iridescent glow. Now you can do the same thing when you do, like if you want to put a light in a window or something here, say for instance you want a light in that window, and that's like an orange and yellow, maybe that's a real lit up part of the painting. And you will like a light there, maybe you like a light there, maybe a light back in there. See, you can do things like that to add a little bit of interest to the painting as well. And man, I'll tell you what, it really creates some really neat effects in the painting. See how all that happens? Put a little bit of orange in your lamps. At different times of day, create different effects in terms of the glow and so forth. Little tiny things. Like, you know, putting this is a very tiny thing, but I think it's important, you know, that you clean up your window by adding some little, like there, and see that kind of makes it come alive a little bit more. The little panes in the window there. See, everything's done very carefully and very quickly. You could even do the same thing over here on this side. You could put a little window, light in the window on this door. And then, you know, you can go in and put some little window panes on it. clean it up a little bit. You put a little bit of that reflection in the water because it's going to be probably right in here someplace. So you put a little bit of that in there. Yeah, you'll have it probably right in there. Quite enough there. A little more orange. Okay. Now one of the last things I do is I take my script brush and I put little thin lines going back and forth, little horizontal lines, and I just dip it straight in the white, like this. And then I go like underneath objects, like where he's walking. Anywhere that you want to add just a little bit more of a finished look. And watch what these little lines do. They're kind of thick. You just want to go over the things that are. There's a good spot right there to do that. Kind of where you're entering in. Now keep in mind, folks, please keep in mind, I have not finished this building or this building. We just don't have time. That was not the point in coming to this class anyway. The point is just showing you the basic concept of building the water to get the reflection so that it looks like a damp, wet street scene. Now look how wet this is helping this look now. Isn't that cool? You just kind of put a few of those in there, and you can make this look as wet as you want to. There's no doubt about it. Well, as usual, folks, we're about to run out of time, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have you spend whatever time you feel like you need to spend touching this up, having some fun with it, understanding the concept of building the water as you go by adding all the colors and the things around your painting into the water, then glazing it to give it a little bit of a sparkle. It's really, really an exciting adventure. And I have to admit, if I were to finish this, I would probably spend 2 or 3 more hours really working out the details. But that's the concept, and it's really exciting. So put it together, have some fun with it, add some more things to it, and I bet you'll have a masterpiece after all.